Yeah, I mean, I think that it's preferable to have substance over um, meta and stuff like that. But I would just want to ask one last thing. Is it true that there was a conversation that you had with a female on Discord and she made it public, this conversation? It was sexual in nature. Did something like that happen? Because it's being pasted around, And I wanted to know if that was
Yes.
actually you or if it wasn't you or.
Yes.
So
Yeah, that
you,
was me.
okay. So you as a
Yeah,
married man,
I don't know to what extent. Yes. Yeah, the answer is yes.
all right, fair enough. But you do have quite a fetish there,
I guess so. I might be kind of sick. That's probably what it is. No, I'm just I don't know what was said or anything, but about
pissing.
what took place.
No, the screenshots are.
Oh.
Yeah, there are screenshots of the conversation that you had as a married man. My question would be, do you regret doing that, or is that something that is
Of
unethical as a
course.
Christian?
Of course.
Do
That's
you
very
still
bad.
like?
That's very wicked.
Do you still like being pissed on?
Pissed on?
Yeah, that was part of the. Well, not to get too graphic with it, but yeah.
Oh, I didn't say anything like that.
Okay, I have the screenshot if anyone wants to see it. Just back channel.
Oh.
There's mention of.
Oh, these can be doctored. These can be doctored or something. I don't like that. I've never liked that.
Would you ever piss on a woman?
No. No.
Never crossed your mind.
Why are we talking about this?
No.
Can you talk about some private elsewhere?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, if I was so no, I never said that. If sometimes I joke around vulgarly about stuff, I guess, but I mean, these things can be doctored. But no, I don't like that. I've never liked that. I've never done that. I've never thought to do that.
Were you during the conversation? Were you masturbating, or was it something that you were using as kind of just to get yourself riled up for later? Or
No. I
but
think
you
there
were
was
having a
one
sexual conversation.
conversation. Yeah. It was.
Were you
It was
turned
something
on?
that I did. I mean, are you masturbating now?
No.
Do you like that?
But he gets off by talking about this stuff.
Yeah. No, I wasn't masturbating. I think there was one. No. It was very wicked, a mistake. It's besmirches Christ. I don't think there was anything perverted that happened. I'm not a pervert or anything like that. What I did was wrong, dude, and it's a terrible it's terrible that went public, but I don't blame anybody besides myself. I'm not upset with anybody. A year ago I made a very bad mistake, and it's sinful and whatever. But I didn't do. Yeah. What do you want me to say, dude? What I did was wrong, and that's not Jesus Christ is not pleased with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I personally don't think that it was something that it was obviously it wasn't a perversion. It wasn't like a distortion of, anything that commonly occurs, right? It's just sexuality. So in your defense, I mean, there was nothing like that, but it just seems like that wouldn't be the behavior of somebody that was a very outspoken Christian. So
Yeah, you're
maybe
correct.
that's a mistake of mine to think that. Well,
I
what
don't
was
know.
going through your
You're
mind? Was
just
it just
correct.
was it a temptation that just got the best of you at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's how all those things happen. But I mean, what can you say, dude? Like, I recognize that because of a situation like that getting public, like maybe people should just not ever take me seriously, and that's maybe like the cost of doing something like that. But it was very wicked and evil, and I don't blame anybody else, not even for like sharing it. Like, and in fact, I actually I like the person just as a human, like too. Like, I'm not mad at anybody or anything. Like, um, it's just you know, I want other Christians to be around that just don't have that, never have that kind of issue, you know. And I look up to them and whatever, dude. Like, yeah, don't look to me for anything, man. Look to Jesus. You know, he had temptations and he never submitted to anyone. You know, he was perfect. And what can I say, man? You
Yeah,
got me.
well, no, I'm not trying to get you, but I would say this, that when I think of the Presupp community and the Reformed community on Discord or online, I mean, your name comes up in the top 5 at least, because of,
I don't know why, dude. I'm a construction,
well,
like, I'm just a stupid
eh,
construction worker.
I think
You
it's
know,
probably, it could be the fact that you had a very public sort of clash with Darth Dawkins. Maybe that's partly to do with it. Second is I think that you just present the argument well, and I just hope that this just doesn't affect, the meaningful things that you have to say, right? Like just because you
I
had
don't
this.
know. Maybe it should, dude. Like, I don't know. Maybe it should. Like, I wouldn't blame anybody for saying like, why should I take this stuff seriously if it doesn't really change, this guy's life? And the best that I can do is just point at people that are, more better represent Christ than me. Maybe the answer is just that I should just forever shut my mouth, dude, on this kind of
No,
public platform.
the
But that's
peculiar
something I'm
thing.
still wrestling with. I'm not trying to like seek for pity or anything. Like, if I really believed that, I would just stop. But there's better people to listen to, dude. I'm just kind of stupid. Like, I think one thing about me is I try to be easy to talk to. I don't know, but maybe that's not the reason why people talk about me a lot. So
Well, the truth is, I think that you're able to take complex subjects, like anyone that's ever read just raw Cornelius Van Til is well aware that this stuff it's difficult. I mean, it's just not easy. It's not easy reading, right? And you're able to present it in a way that people understand. And I think that's the strength, and that's why um, you're thought of in this regard. But my question is honestly, like, if you weren't, why would you engage in a conversation like that if you weren't getting gratified in some way? Because you said you weren't masturbating, and it wasn't something that. What was the point of you having a sexual conversation as a married man, Christian man, if you weren't at the time masturbating or would later masturbate? Like, what
I
was you
don't know.
doing?
I don't really want to answer that. I can just tell you that at the time I was not, um, and that I can say, yeah, that didn't happen. I think from my recall, there was like one explicit like conversation of a sexual nature, um, and I'm just going from memory. I don't think, yeah, because I remember where I was at the time, and I was like, it wouldn't have been a spot where I'd be doing that. I think, but that's it, dude. That's all I'll say on the topic. I'm not gonna tell
All
you
right.
like if I was like playing with my wiener and stuff or like planning
No,
to.
no. I'm just curious as to, obviously the motive is a complete question mark, given what we know now. So
Well, if you
that's
think of
just
like
people are going to wonder.
if you've been like faithful for a while, and stuff like that, like sometimes you just take tiny little steps, I don't know. It's hard. It's just all wrong, man. Yeah, just listen to people that are more morally consistent. Right, I think that's all I'm going to say about the topic.
if you had to venture a guess, and when I say volume, I'm talking like in like milliliters. How big of a load do you think that you produce after abstaining?
Daniel Nero, shut up.
I'd say an ocean.
Oh, we can just move on. There's no point of.
Yeah. No, I gotta go anyway. Oh, I'll give the mic. I'll give the baton up.
So Nick, what's going on? What's going on? Do I end this thing, or what am I doing here?
Yeah, we can probably edit.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I can probably edit.
All right. Well, that was something.
Reduction in the paralysis and all that kind of stuff that was happening with the reduction in the use of DDT that happened prior to the supposed defeat of polio from the vaccine. It was now that the vaccine was given the this is and the reduction of polio is this is why all this stuff stops, but then it like directly correlates with the people are still getting polio, but they stopped using DDT, and then the paralysis stuff dramatically reduced.
Yeah, this sounds like not something that is true based on there still being polio cases today, right? And like the polio vaccine still being effective today, except when people don't get the polio vaccine, which would seem to be kind of direct evidence against any kind of DDT correlation.
Okay, so nobody in the United States gets the polio vaccine anymore. It hasn't for decades.
Sorry, what now?
So people in the United States aren't getting the polio vaccine.
That's not true. That's just, I mean, Google it. Like, it's just not true. What? Like the polio there's a new polio vaccine. So it used to be oral polio, and now it is intramuscular polio. And the oral polio is basically not used as of like, I don't know, 20 years? Somewhere in the 20-year mark ish. And it's currently intramuscular polio is the thing that is used, and everybody gets the polio vaccine. In fact, they get multiple polio vaccines because it's a series.
Yeah. Okay, so it hasn't been used since 2000. So that's 2 decades, like I said.
No, that's oral polio. That's the oral polio vaccine that has been replaced with the more modern vaccine. Which is just better in general. Non-live virus vaccines are better. They're safer. But yeah, everybody gets the polio vaccine in the United States, unless you are like, one of the ridiculous bunch. And that's why there are polio outbreaks in the United States. There's actually one in New Jersey.
I'd imagine there's probably more data that shows that I don't know
where are you getting your facts from?
Yeah.
They seem very
I make them up.
specific.
I mostly make them up as I go.
Was this science facts that you're getting? Because science is wrong.
Benjamin, I'm of the opinion that if I repeat something enough times, it becomes true.
Right. So it becomes true for you. That's what I mean. That's identity-based facts. That's what I'm
not
all
what I meant.
about.
No, I was making a much subtler claim, which is that the facts become true universally. Sorry, John.
I was going to say the breakouts. There's been quite a bit of data on the breakouts of polio in the United States coming from not necessarily from people living here or natives, but from immigrants.
Sure. I mean, well, what does it matter?
Okay, you're not following that point. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
I think I must have missed it. But yeah, I mean,
I'm good, bro. I'm not going down that rabbit hole if you don't get that one.
Yeah, like I mean, sure. If you like, as far as I'm concerned, unvaccinated people are unvaccinated people. It doesn't make a difference whether it's people being brought in from people who are immigrants who are unvaccinated who are coming in here, or people who are here and they're being dumb and they're not getting the polio shot. Like it doesn't. Like it's all kind of the same. People should be like the government should ensure that all immigrants are up to date on their immunizations in the same way that they make sure that everybody who lives here who goes to school is up to date on their immunizations, particularly the ones that have public health risks. Because again, this is, I mean, we've been jumping around this idea, right? But this is kind of the unique, possibly the unique sphere where the government has a vested interest to be more overbearing than in other places, right? Like I tend to take the libertarian approach on a lot of different things with regards to the government, right? Because it's just like none of their business for a whole bunch of things, right? But there are scenarios like this one where there are actually like where your decisions affect me in kind of a real way, but it might be difficult to specifically pinpoint where that happens. And so you could take the hard position that, well, it's none of my business what you do, and the consequences of your actions, even if they affect me, it's like just tough shit, right? But like, I think you would be ignoring a whole bunch of implications there. With regards to like I don't know, like another example of this would be something like pollution, right? So I think it's a lot more subtle, and this is a space where the government just has a natural tendency and a natural interest to set policy that is more general to the population and not granular to specific people.
All right, so while I was we've been talking, I finally found what I was looking for earlier on that paper. In this study, we present evidence that COVID-19 mRNA vaccine, it's the Pfizer one they're referring to with the numbers, is able to enter the human liver cell line HUH7 in vitro as reverse transcribed intracellularly into DNA as fast as 6 hours after exposure. A possible mechanism for reverse transcription is through endogenous reverse transcriptase line 1, and the nucleose protein distribution of line 1 is elevated by BNT. That's the vaccine number. That was from the Swedish study. That was the one I was looking for.
This is into the lining or into the DNA of the cell of the liver?
Now, they don't specify, like they earlier in the paper, they referred to that other one I mentioned from Zhang on the integration into the genome. And it's like I think there's reference 25, I think, from them. In this and their discussion, I don't remember seeing anywhere where they specifically stated that it was integrated into the genome, only that it was being reverse transcribed into DNA specifically.
And I don't. I mean, like, look, when I tell Jeff that he bodies precepts, I do think that's true. And when he didn't get
Which is just crazy, right?
And
it's like, what does that even mean? Jeff is bodying precepts by asking them to defend the first premise of tag.
Yeah,
that's what it takes to body precepts.
Well, not simply that. They have to not answer. They have to not be able to answer. And he has to be able to navigate the rest of the conversation and the dodging in order to body them, which he's done successfully many times.
Tom, as much as it pains me, I had to take up for you the other night.
Oh, by the way, after you left,
but
so proud of him
because I was.
We talked. It's
that's
this type of talking might just like. It's. I mean, like, look, people didn't really seem to be buying it. So I went in.
If you know what like your evidence is for like the existence of theists and that they possess. Oh, so you're meaning okay. So when
yeah, it's just as simple as he's not actually that smart and he's getting attention and it's undeserved.
He's not sophisticated philosophically. Is it like he's not sophisticated philosophically? Is that what it is?
Is it really as just as simple as he's not actually that smart and he's getting attention and it's undeserved? Is that really the...
Oh, it is. No, he's always been like that. I've been dogging him since the first time I met him. He sucks. I've had many, many arguments with Jeff. They've all gone down like that. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're like so proud of him for defeating Presupps, even though he does terribly in those conversations.
he doesn't though.
What?
He does.
What?
Right?
What were you debating, Jeff?
Anything
Trimble?
that they hit him back with, he just well, you still haven't answered my question. That doesn't.
No. Well, they hadn't. But
that's what makes
argument.
Jeff.
They actually don't answer the question, okay. Right? So, but what were you debating, Jeff?
This is part of why Jeff. This is part of why people are getting bodied, because you shouldn't even like be able like Jeff shouldn't even be able to like land a punch or get even a rhetorical win or anything if he's as bad as you say he is. But
it's not. You're delusional.
The fact is that he's really armed with one. He's armed with one bullet, and that's what makes it so fucking embarrassing for the Presupps.
Yeah, you're delusional if you think that.
Yeah, well, what's your rebuttal? What's your rebuttal to that question, Sean?
To what question?
He's asking for a defense for P1 of the tag.
Well, it doesn't matter what Sean's rebuttal is. It matters. We're having a discussion. We're having a discussion about whether or not Jeff Trimble is like bodying or effective or scoring points against these Presupps, right? It doesn't matter what Sean's answer is. The point is that they don't have an answer.
Well, I imagine that Sean thinks that they've come up with an answer, right? Like he thinks that Jeff does this thing where he like sniper shoots his one bullet.
Yeah, that's why
the Presupps like get out of the way or they block the bullet somehow. But like,
that's why he thinks it's ridiculous, right? That's why he says it's ridiculous because it's so obvious the answer. And if Sean thinks that it's obvious, then what is the answer?
Well, I understand your point there. I mean,
I think he even bodied. Sorry, I'm going to let you answer.
Yeah. You follow like how transcendental arguments are supposed to go. Logic and morality, transcendentals need to be accounted for somehow. These are like real concepts, like real quote unquote universals that everyone universally assents to, but no one really can account for. So God seems to be a good explanation for how those transcendentals obtain. If I was like more studied, I could
Yeah, but your answer to
run
this question
circles
is
around someone
irrelevant.
like
Your answer to this
Jeff
question is
Trimble.
irrelevant.
Okay.
Isn't it ironic?
Wait, what is going on? We're talking about Jeff Trimble and how he performed with other people, not Sean. Not how Sean would answer the question. What does that have to fucking do with anything?
Who has the only one I listened to was him and Matt Slick, and it's just there's nothing impressive about asking Matt Slick to defend the first premise.
It's not impressive. It's not.
No. What? Yeah.
I don't think it is impressive. Yeah, he just asked them one question and then they flounder. It's hilarious.
How do you not understand? How are you don't have the wherewithal to understand this? You don't think Jeff? Funniest fucking thing.
So you're not impressed.
Of course not, you fucking idiot.
Well, I thought
the whole point is the whole point is that he's like half a new atheist, right? And he's armed with one question, and I make fun of him, right? He's a 60-year-old retired man, right? I like to play up the angle that he's like not really impressive. That's what makes this so funny.
Oh, okay, cool. That's great. It seems like you guys are like, well, then we agree.
No, but we don't agree, because the reason I think it's funny is because he is, in fact, piling up Presupp bodies. That you disagree with that.
Who?
Jeff Trimble.
Okay, I'm gonna get on Sean's side.
What bodies?
Let's do this, baby.
What bodies besides Matt? Who else does he talk to? Maybe I'm totally out of the loop.
Darth Dawkins.
Oh yeah, Darth fucking shit on him.
No, he didn't. He just he just repeated the claim.
Sean said he did, so he did.
Look, Brute, please don't. I don't know what you're doing, but like, I don't think anyone's really in the mood for it.
I'm trying to lighten it up. Just be quiet for right now.
Yeah, Darth Dawkins just repeated the claim, and then he went into like a spiral of like insults and like just. And he also beat Matt yesterday, the other day. And I can tell you why.
Okay.
First of all, do you agree he beat Matt Yester? Or sorry, he scored points on Matt Yester?
I
He
have
bodied
no
Matt
idea.
Yester?
I didn't hear anything they talked about.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not gonna. You didn't hear the conversation.
You're not gonna spoil it for me? What?
Well, Matt Yester had no answer either, right? And Matt Yester's retort was not any kind of addressing of what the support is. I mean, he was literally just babbling incoherently, right? And his big rebuttal was to ask Jeff whether or not what is the definition of a transcendental, and what he means by that is a transcendental argument. Now, Jeff's answer was incorrect, and then that's when all the celebrating started. Truthy and Matt Yester and everyone, they start celebrating that this guy who doesn't even know what he's talking about and doesn't even know what a transcendental is. But what they don't realize is that that's what makes it even worse for them. That's why Jeff Trimble is piling up Presupp bodies, and it's hilarious, right? It's because even not knowing what a transcendental argument was, still armed with just one question, he was able to body Matt Yester.
How did he body him if Matt asked him what a transcendental was and he wasn't able to answer?
Because that's irrelevant to whether or not he can. Yeah.
The non sequitur.
Why are we talking about Jeff when he's not here to defend himself?
Oh,
hold on,
Jeff,
Eddie.
I can defend Jeff just fine.
But how is it a non sequitur?
Because whether or not he knows what a transcendental is, transcendental argument just doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that would undermine his ability to rebut the argument.
No, because he knows what the referent is. He knows X is necessary for Y. X therefore Y, right? He may not know it as a transcendental. It's just really completely inconsequential. It's just a transparent quiz show move, and then a bunch of celebrating for nothing. And no matter how he answers that question, Nothing is going to change the fact that he didn't actually provide or have a response for what is the support for premise one of that transcendental argument. He knows the argument, right? He can recite the argument. Does he know that that's a transcendental argument or is defined as such? No. Big deal. Who cares?
Okay.
If you get two aces and you don't know them as pocket rockets, does that mean you can't fucking play poker?
What's the disanalogy?
That's like that's like slang. That's not like know what the aces do.
Jesus Christ.
Right, exactly. And he knows the referent of what the transcendental argument. He knows that actual thing, right? He knows it not by that name, but he knows what it is. Now, when you get two aces, you know what two aces are. You might not know that pocket rockets is two aces, but that doesn't stop you from playing with two aces and knowing that you have two aces.
Yeah, I don't. He doesn't.
So Matt Yester said, "Do you even know what pocket rockets are?" And then he said, "You can't play poker."
That's right.
Fucking laughable, Sean.
Okay, hold on. That's kind of
what?
If you fucking laugh like that one more time, I'm fucking blocking you, Tom.
Look, Sean,
seriously,
I don't.
What the fuck? What the fuck is it with you people and unmuting your mic to fucking chuckle?
My apologies. Sorry about that, John.
It's not really this analogy though. Seems like a fairly apt analogy.
Holy shit!
Look, it's funny because I don't think we even really disagree on much. Like, I told, as soon as I heard the master thing, I said, like, yep, Jeff, well, I think you got this wrong. I said, you got the transcendental argument thing wrong. And then there's another thing you got wrong. And then I asked him if he had too many Long Island iced teas out on the porch. So, like, bro, Jeff doesn't think he's, like, gonna be, like, having, speaking fees anytime soon or anything. And this is just all just joking. But it is the case that he's bodying Presupps with one question. And by the way, it's not a question.
It's far too charitable.
It's not a question. It's not a question that's like original to him. Look, I mean, there's many videos on my channel of other people, including myself, doing it. Right? It's just funny that it's Jeff because he's not really that knowledgeable about a lot of this stuff. But it was just like an interesting case where a guy pretty much armed with just the one question, like he's just got one bullet really, right? And he's able to come out on top in a lot of these engagements.
Yeah, I think you're just happy that like anybody annoys these people that you don't like. He's doing fine, but you're just admitting that he's like, you're basically memeing on him. You're like saying, "Oh yeah, you're killing him, Jeff." Even though,
well, I mean, it's a little played up, but I 100% think that he is.
And you think that's what makes it more funny is that he's so stupid.
No, I didn't say he was stupid. No, I didn't say he was stupid. No, he's not stupid. He's not stupid.
Right, that's not what he meant.
He's not like prepared in the same way that a lot of other people are going to be prepared. He's not going to be, and you and I would agree on this, he's not going to have an answer for a lot of the rebuttals. Like if they start talking about something like fucking, the universals or something like that, hey, he's not going to know how to respond to that. I would think, right? That doesn't mean he's not being successful with the one question. And that is a very good question to ask a preceptor. And if they can't answer that, well, then what did they really what kind of argument do they have?
Yeah, I don't really care about this. That's not why I'm not dogging him because you guys are like patting him on the back for dealing with precepts well. I was dogging him for coming into the room and pretending to congratulate somebody on a conversion to Christianity when he like hates religion and he thinks it's like destructive to the individual and to society and all this other bullshit, and being a hypocrite and saying he doesn't care what people believe when he goes absolutely ham on how evil religion is all the time, like a typical political atheist dipshit.
That was awesome. I don't think Sean likes me very much. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I've never really heard you say a lot about that stuff.
No, I haven't. I mean, maybe you know, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I first became an atheist, I may have held to some of those views, but it's been a long time since I really held to that. I do think, and I explained it in the room.
There.
Critical thinking. Yeah.
When was this conversation taking place?
I think it
Tom
was
said it was
late
last
last
night.
night.
Yeah, it was after I had already talked, and yeah. So.
Okay.
I think it took place right after Sean blocked Godless Girl.
I didn't realize it was being recorded because I don't know. I just thought my app was all messed up. I didn't realize it was recording. I mean, anyway, that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Hey, look, and I claim being a dumbass. You guys heard me say it about myself. I know that, but I don't. Yeah. I have no problem owning that.
I don't think you're a dumbass, Jeff.
I don't even know what he meant when he said he like debates you all the time. And what do you guys even disagree about? I don't get it. Have you ever debated it or something, Jeff?
He just likes to go after me for some reason, and I don't know why, but I just see him as a schoolyard bully, and he saw me as new, I guess, and he just, I don't know, for whatever reason, he likes to go after me, and that's kind of fine. I don't care, and I've had a few conversations with him, but he's always just trying to, well, do what he did the other night. It's just like some kind of he doesn't want to be honest. He doesn't want to answer any questions, and he straw mans me and say, well, you believe this, and you believe that, and you believe this, and well, no, why don't you just ask me what else? So it's always been conversations like that. He's just a dumbass. He thinks he's
What's the
smart.
specific things he tries to argue with you about?
Anything. He says, well, you believe this. Do you believe this? And like, no, I don't believe that. Well, I've heard you say this, and I've heard you say that, and
Well, but
it's like
like,
he's got a note,
I'm curious if you remember like an example.
I can't think of one. I can't think of one other than like recently. I don't remember him like routinely having disagreements with you. That just didn't sound like right to me.
The only he did ask me last night about infinite regress versus an
night.
uncaused cause. Yeah, and I told him, yeah.
But he's acting like he's had all these like conversations with you, and he's concluded you're a dumbass or something. I'm just thinking like, when was all that?
One of the very first conversations I'd ever had with him was before he had already assumed I'm a dumbass because he'd been listening to me in rooms, and so he approached the very first conversation and basically said, as much he thought I was a dumbass.
I think I like disconnected for a second. Did you guys hear everything?
Yeah, we
Maybe
did.
not.
That was
I
great.
think it finished. Well, did it? I mean, yeah, I think it finished, and then Jeff started talking.
It's
And
I
then,
stopped it when like I stopped it at the point where they were like Sean was asking me like why people hate him or something like that.
Oh no,
That's
we
where I
didn't hear
stopped
that.
It
Oh, we
ended.
didn't
No,
hear
we didn't hear
that.
that.
It
Oh, keep
ended.
playing.
It ended when Sean was like, he's a political atheist, and then like you dropped.
He's a dipshit. Yeah, and it stopped.
Well, I guess you heard most of it. I don't know when
Yeah.
exactly when you.
I think maybe part of the problem is that people don't like him, and he sees himself as smarter than me, which okay, he
Well,
probably is. I don't care, and people don't like him, so I think
yeah, I was
that's
just.
yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to get to like why are you getting this amount of hate? It seems completely disproportional to like maybe just being annoyed by you. I don't even really know what the grievance is still really, you know.
Oh, it's who does he think he is? That's it.
It's all clout.
That's all it is. Who does he
Maybe.
think he is?
Yeah.
It's all clout, right? Like Jeff getting support for debate wins, and Sean wants to have support for debate wins.
He's
and
jelly. Is that the idea?
It's all petty jealousy.
Yeah, it comes off a little bit that way.
I don't know.
I might agree.
I mean, it is jealousy, but it's also like he doesn't. You know, he's down there and we're up here, and it's like you're being like I hate to say this word, but like uppity or something. That's what they think. I think that's what they think.
Yeah, I don't know. A guy that calls himself a dumbass, I mean, all the time, and readily admits that he doesn't know much about this stuff.
It's
I
nothing
don't know
you're
how anybody.
doing. It's just
Yeah.
how they perceive it, because they've got this weird
Yeah, but that's
hierarchical idea of like
yeah.
who are the debate people and who are the who are the normies or whatever. That's what
Right.
I think it is.
Yeah, they think Jeff is like below their station.
Yes.
Well, perhaps he is. I mean, he probably is when it comes to like debating, however they want to use it as a metric. But that's also what makes what he's doing so fun and hilarious.
Yeah,
right?
they didn't.
Is
I
that,
don't. Yeah, it's
like,
true. Yeah.
He also has anger issues, you know.
Look, I'm happy. I'm happy for everybody to have a laugh, at my behalf, and I know that it's funny, and I know the reason it's funny, and I don't have any delusions about that. I know what's going on. I'm a very self-aware person, and I entered into this willingly.
right? But no one's like it's not really the focus really is you too much, right? I mean, it's just hilarious. By the way, because you're not as like well known and stuff, you actually are able to get kind of more access to a lot of these people, right? The people are more willing to engage with you because you're just some guy that they don't recognize, right? A lot of other people, if they were to try to do the same thing, they might be much more guarded or maybe not even engage you in the first place. So yeah, your situation is a little unique, and it's resulted in some very interesting interactions and noteworthy, right? I don't know what I thought I was very honest with what I said to Sean, and everything I said to him. I mean, no one here, none of us are trying to say that you're like a master or something like that, which is just seems to be part of the root of all this resentment, is that like you're getting debate recognition and like it's not deserved or something like that. You're getting recognition for exactly what you've done, which is pose one question to notable Presupps, some of them even professionals, of not being able to answer is quite encounter, right? That's it.
Yeah, one trick pony. I do need another bullet in my gun though.
Is Tom just lagging for me?
Maybe. Yeah, I think I'm
You're lagging hard.
Yeah, you got a bad connection, Tom.
all right, let me try and reconnect.
Well, while he comes back, what do you guys think about my new mic? Is it good? Do I sound better?
Yeah, it sounds terrific.
Yeah, it's my new
Much
mic. I
better.
like it. No, I'm just joking. It's not a new mic. It's just that I'm home. I'm like talking to you from home, so I can use my headset.
Well,
My actual.
that's probably why it sounds so good. I assumed you were at home. But yeah,
Yeah.
obviously it's better in a quiet room. But it's pretty good. I mean, I don't think it was like your mic is the problem at work. It's just all the background noise, you know.
Do you operate a crane or something?
I think it's a
Forklift. Forklift, yeah.
It's
I was
got
thinking about
that
buying a toy.
sound.
I was just on Amazon and I was like looking through Amazon and I saw this toy, like a forklift toy. I think I'm gonna get it and play on it here.
Oh, and then have it as your profile pic. That would be hilarious. And
Not
then
just that, like you guys can hear the noise in the background.
But you could use it to let us know, right, that you're on the forklift.
Yes,
So
like
we don't have to.
I can fake where I am if I'm home. Or...
Yeah. What's your take? Why do you think people are so like aggro on Jeff? What do you think, Murphy?
Well, like no offense, Jeff, but you do give off the vibes of like a new atheist, and so I think people see that and just assume you're a new atheist. You know what I mean by new atheist? Like people who watch like a little bit of like Mental Hunty, and they want to kind of expose that.
I mean, honestly, I never got those vibes from Jeff. I'm not like I don't know or care whether Jeff is like a philosophy master, but he doesn't seem like a new atheist to me.
I don't know what this like thing is that it's acceptable to bully new atheists. Like I've never understood why that's cool.
I guess
like,
because they
hold on.
think
You could say, listen, you need better arguments, or like this is kind of cringe. But it's just like intellectual bullying by other atheists. I just think it's shit.
No, I'm not saying it's justified. I'm just saying that that's why they do it.
Okay.
I think the idea is, in most cases, lack of philosophical understanding, and overconfidence in science or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know
look,
if Jeff has
if
that.
someone's not claiming to have any of that, right? It just seems to me kind of bullying to like expose that in a kind of mean way when somebody's not going in saying, I know loads of philosophy, debate me, bro, which Jeff has never done, you know.
I don't even know if Jeff is like a new atheist. He just fits the profile.
I think he's
like
I think maybe a little bit at first, but he was
2.5
never
years. 2.5 years.
No. We don't mean new. Like we mean like a new atheist, like a Matt Dillahunty, or like a Richard Dawkins, or and I think maybe like a lot of atheists start off there, which is like why not, right? Because those are the famous atheists, whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But look, Jeff's really changed since he started, I think. I mean, he used to be into street epistemology, you know? That's worse than a new atheist. No offense, Jeff.
It's all good. I don't mind. Again, I'm a very self-aware person, and I've got a thick skin, and I'm on a public social media app. I'm good.
I'm curious what people have against street epistemology.
I was going to ask, actually. I mean, I don't really know anything about it, so I don't really have an opinion. So I was curious why it's like dumb.
I still actually employ the technique in some conversations, even on the app, but in personal life.
It could be that I've only seen it here, so people might not be like the best practitioners at it or something. I just find it dishonest, and I don't know. There's something about it. I think you're feigning that you just want to like hear what they believe, but you do have an agenda, and I think you should be upfront with the agenda.
That's interesting. Sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, go ahead, Ozzy. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say I I remember when that book came out by Peter Boghossian, which I thought was a terrible book, A Manual for Creating Atheists. And that's where I believe it was in that book that he coined the term street
That's
epistemology.
correct.
And it sort of touched something off. A number of people got into it. And Anthony Magnabosco, he's a friend. Just full disclosure, I know him, Anthony, and he's a friend of mine. And he sort of started making a lot of videos, and he kind of groomed a lot of other people and got them into it. And he sort of refined sort of the technique of inquiry that they use. But one thing I've noticed about Anthony and the other people in his orbit who learned it sort of directly from him. I can't speak for other chapters, so to speak. But of the people in Anthony Magnabosco's orbit, they're actually pretty open about what their motivations are. If you ask them, they'll usually say, well, while they're doing it, they'll say, well, I'll be happy at the end of the interview to answer any questions and stuff like that. But just for the purpose of this discussion, I want to keep mine out of it. And, so obviously they're not showing their cards up front, but that's because showing your cards up front would completely put the person on the defensive and wouldn't be conducive to getting honest answers out of the person, right? They would all of a sudden see your agenda and they would react appropriately. So I always thought that was okay. But there is, of course, this underlying ambition to sort of get people to question their beliefs and raise doubts in their minds, and then create atheists that way. So there is an agenda there, but they don't lie, they don't dissimulate about what their motivations are when they're asked. They just postpone answering the question. So I think that's
And
okay. Now, if it's
also,
done differently, I would like. Well, I mean, you could speak to if I'm characterizing this correctly.
yeah. So Ozzy, I've
I've
talked.
got to be honest. I would be furious if someone did that to me.
Well, hang on. So
If
so
they're
I've
like, "Oh, I'll answer all your questions at the end," so
no,
we
no,
go
no.
through
Hang
this
on.
whole interview with you, and then at the end they're like, "By the way, we're trying to make you into an atheist." I would be really
No,
pissed off. I think that is
no.
dishonest. You just took all my time, and you did hide your cards, and you didn't tell me what you were up to, and you tell me at the end.
Well,
What the hell?
hang on. That's not always that's not the case. So, I've watched lots of Anthony's videos. I've actually talked with Anthony personally, and in most of the videos, in the training, I've gone through the actual training that he's put out, and it says that you should gain consent up front. Let the interlocutor know that you're going to be asking
Consent
very
to
tough
what? Consent to
to
what?
to ask you very tough questions about what your beliefs are, questions that might actually really make you think, and you might even doubt some of the reasons why you believe some things. And he actually tells them that up front, and then he asks them to make and if they consent, he asks them to make a claim, and the conversation proceeds. And if they do want to know what his in the middle, sometimes of the conversation will come up. Well, what do you think about this? And he goes, well, I will tell you, and we'll move on, and then after the conversation. But he doesn't answer in the middle, but he has been upfront at the beginning, and he does say, look, I want to ask you questions about why you believe these things, and they're tough questions, they're very
Yeah, it
hard
sounds
questions.
like
Yeah.
Darth Dawkins to me. Sounds like
uh,
it sounds like atheist Presupp. Doesn't
well, I
Darth say
take
that? I'll be happy to tell you my worldview, just as long as you
yeah,
answer
yeah,
these questions. Now, how do you know anything? I mean,
There's,
yeah.
it's bullshit.
Okay,
I,
well,
I
go
don't
look
I
at a
don't think
couple of
it,
his videos.
yeah, watch his videos. I think you'll find they go nothing like the Presupp stuff. There's no bullying. There's no
I
interrupting. He lets
don't
people
mean.
talk at length.
I don't mean the lack of cordiality. I mean the fact that it's a line of questions, the fact that it's a script, and the fact that if they are like, "Hey, wait a minute, what about you?
Oh,
What's
there's no
your game?"
script.
They're
There's no
like,
script.
"Oh, there
Yeah.
isn't." Okay.
No,
No,
there's
how
really no
how would
script.
you have
Yeah.
a script? How would you have a script? It's the Socratic method. It's not a script. It's just you listen to what people say, and and you're asking the reasons why they believe something, right? And you focus on the why and what are the reasons. And you don't care what the belief is. Like I could care what uh, who cares what the belief is? I want to know how they've arrived at that belief because if they've not used good methods and good reasons to arrive at the belief, then there's a good chance they've arrived at a false belief, right?
Well,
So it's
you're
the
going in
yeah.
thinking they have a false belief.
No, you're asking them to
Yeah.
make a claim. You're asking them to make the claim, and then sometimes I've actually been on the other side where I've had my interlocutor make a claim that I agree with, and I've had to use the Socratic method to ask questions to them to find out why they believe what they believe and do they have good reasons. I was on streamed on YouTube on Reed's Nice Wonders channel having a conversation with a college student that agreed that there's more than one gender. I agreed with her, and that was her claim, and I had to have the conversation with that when I agreed with her on it to figure out the reasons she used. So that's all it focuses on is the reasons a person uses to determine if something's true.
Yeah, that really is the agenda. The okay, so let me back up here and talk about what Anthony's view is on this a little bit. I don't want to speak for him, but I mean, I have had conversations with him about this, some of which have been recorded actually on his channel. And the ambition is not to directly challenge people's religious beliefs because you don't even know what they're going to be talking about, right? They could be talking about ghosts. They could be talking about some political thing. You really don't know. But the idea is to just get people to start considering their a cherished belief, usually something about which they feel reasonably confident and value, and get them to start thinking about what their reasons are. Very often, they have a strongly held view, and they have never articulated the reasons for it to themselves, and so they find themselves on the spot having to think out loud and reason it out, right? And so that is the idea. And the ultimate goal is this: if you get people in the habit of evaluating their positions and changing their minds, that this can be generalized, that they will carry this forth and go, oh, that wasn't so terrible. That wasn't an awful experience. Sure, there's some cognitive dissonance when I realize I'm not doing a good job of defending my view. But having done this, having gone through this exercise and maybe changed my mind, changed my confidence interval has gone up or down. They have this confidence scale, this certainty scale, 0% to 100% and all that. And having admitted to myself that I can revise my confidence, I don't have to reject the belief, but I can just scale down my confidence or possibly even scale it up at the end of the conversation, although usually it comes down. That this is a lesson that stays with them. And the idea is we're just imparting a basic critical thinking skill. And the idea is if you can do that, if we were to promulgate this idea broadly enough and get people in the habit of doing this, then you kind of get atheism for free because people will move away from dogmatism and they'll move in the direction of critical thinking. And so you don't try to directly convert them into atheists. You don't try to talk them into atheism. You just try to talk them into critical thinking, and then you get atheism or perhaps agnosticism or at least less dogmatism as a kind of byproduct. That's the view. That's the objective. And please correct me if I'm not characterizing this fairly.
Well, have you done that
That's
in
pretty good,
regards
Ozzy.
of naturalism or the proposition that no God is required to explain our existence? Because I see frequently atheists questioning our beliefs as theists or Christians, but rarely applying the same scrutiny or skepticism to the proposition that no God is required
Yeah,
for
so
the
you're coming
to
in. That's
rule
not
its
even
own
what we're talking
race.
about. That's not even what we're talking about, Otangelo. I don't even know where you're just totally off topic.
Well, look, I think I agree with Haiti, and I mean I don't disagree with most of what Ozzy said either. I think the concern that Haiti has is genuine, and the reason why is because there. I've been saying for years, like I think there's very close similarities between Presupp and street epistemology, and the first issue is that it's always like, how do you know that? Why do you think that's true? And of course, you try to come up with derivatives to say like, okay, well, why is your confidence level that high on that? But really, at the end of the day, what are we asking? Like, how do you know that, right? And I used to see all the comments of people going, Seitan Bruggencate on college campuses talking to freshmen, right, about philosophy they've never even encountered. And meanwhile, I'm like, okay, that's exactly what these other guys are doing. No, I think Anthony's
But that's true.
Yes.
Saiten Rudenkate did that. But I always thought that was great about Saiten Rudenkate. I mean, he could bully people at times, but most of the time he was actually very respectful, and he just exposed that people just couldn't defend their views, and he didn't do it in a hostile way. He was actually pretty cool about it.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think Anthony's probably one of the best at what he does. I think the issue is that when the average person doesn't have like the terminology, like they don't know yet how to be like, well, look, I don't think this concept is, I think it's irreducible, right? Like they may not have this, the wording in mind, but if this is just a critical thinking exercise, like, which is my main objection, is that, look, we don't need a new thing, straight epistemology, right? We've had the Socratic method for all these years. What differentiates the Socratic method from straight epistemology? Well, I mean, like we know from the book that it was started in, How to Create Atheists, right? Like his whole thing in the introduction is like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to go out into the bars, to the school places, to the work areas, to all these places to help people to lose this faith. And he talks about it as if it's some type of like parasite, right? I'm going to teach you how to be like a doctor to go out there and help people get rid of their faith. And it's like, I don't think it's a genuine starting point, though, right? Like, I think that the Socratic method is like, hey, let's dialogue back and forth, right? Well, what's your view? I'm going to hold it till the end. Like, I agree with that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, actually. I really don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you are doing it in the way that Saiten Rudenkate on his better days is doing it, and the way Anthony Magnabosco was doing it, especially in his latter days. I think he was a little bit clumsier at it early on, and I think he has sort of moved away from a more direct, objective. I think like the idea of creating atheists is like pretty far from his mind when he's conducting these interviews. I think that's not there, right?
You know what would probably increase my confidence and things like that is like take a view that you don't that you are like embarrassed to question, or like something that would really like you don't want to question these people on it, right? Because it would actually affect you, right? Like you say to somebody, what's your what's a deeply held belief you hold, right? And instead of like every single one on YouTube being like aliens or God, right? It's, well, I came to the realization that I became that I'm a woman. I've always been a woman, and that whatever, right? You're not going to see these kind of people going, well, why would you think that? Like, why is your confidence so high that you actually are this, and you're not just experiencing something else, right? You're not seeing these because those are really hard conversations. And not even that I'm not even taking a position there, right? I'm just saying that's some of the stuff where it's like, it's aliens, ghosts, or God. It's like, where's the other tough conversations,
Well, I would love it if who was it? It was Otangelo. Is he still here? Or is he gone? Oh, he's gone.
I think he's good. But he said why?
If someone did the same thing with like naturalism, like if Anthony Magnabosco were to sort of walk up to someone and ask them, just how committed are you to naturalism or physicalism or something like that? Although most people won't know what the hell you're talking about, and he never suggests the topic. He always invites the person to come up with something, you know. And if they can't think of anything, they'll say, well, what about something like this or this? And he'll have a list of like, 2-3 things, and they'll go, oh, that kind of thing. Right. Okay. Yeah. How about this? Sometimes they'll agree to talk about one of the things he suggested, but yeah, go ahead.
I don't know, man. Look, if I said I'm a naturalist, right? I don't know if I am or not. And then, Altoid said, look, there's a lot of problems with that view. And I'd be like, oh, tell me why you think it's wrong. And then he would tell me and I would listen and we'd have a conversation about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want. I don't want a fake interview to show me I'm dumb. And that's what I think this is.
But I think if you watch the interview, I'm getting the feel that you haven't actually watched one. Like if you watched,
Maybe I've only seen like bad actors doing this. I'll concede that. But it
Good
sounds
if
well,
to me
there are bad
that
ones. There are bad ones to be seen. Yeah, there are bad ones to be seen.
Like the goal is to show people that they are holding contradictory views, that they have cognitive dissonance, or they can't justify what they believe. And to me, all of those things, that's what makes someone feel dumb.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you there.
It could be.
Why
It
can't
could
you
be.
say, look, Haiti, here's my issue with naturalism. What do you think? right? I think that's just far more respectful.
Well, I agree, but I mean that's a harder thing to do. Whereas when you walk in, you're in a park or on a college campus, and you walk up and you invite a person to suggest something, you're not going to be in a position to advance a bunch of arguments against their position. And remember, he doesn't actually try to talk them out or disabuse them of their views. He really does just ask questions, and there's no script. He's not, I mean, he really doesn't know what they're going to come up with, right? I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes they're talking about, like, why they think statues should be torn down, or why statues should, Civil War statues should be preserved and stuff like that. I mean, it can be about anything. He really doesn't know what he's gonna get. So there's no question that it's a script. But you're right. There are bad examples out there of people that are really, without being overt about it, are slyly trying to pwn the person and catch them and generate cognitive dissonance, right? But I mean, I think when it's done properly and done well, that's not the objective, right? The objective is to get the person thinking. It's not to humiliate them. And I mean, I would be the first person to call it out if I
Yeah,
saw that, because I hate that. I hate that in these rooms. I hate that in these rooms.
Yeah, and also on Anthony's Magna Bosco's channel, you'll see a series of videos where some people come back 2, 3, 4 times to continue conversations with him because they enjoyed it, and they're like, "Oh, you really made me think," and they come back and have further conversations with him. So it's I guess maybe just different strokes for different folks.
It
Maybe.
might just work. Some people might really enjoy it, right?
But
And
I
other
think
people, it might make them uncomfortable. I think that might just be the
I
truth
think
of the
you guys
matter.
Well, and
probably
they
agree
walk up to
with that.
them. So
But I
it's not
can
like Anthony stands in one spot, and if people are interested in talking with him, they can come up to him. He's not like actively pursuing people, like walking down the street trying to catch people.
Right.
And
Right.
so
but keep in mind, Darth, sitting in a room right now, and somebody's coming in that doesn't know him, right? And he's going to say, "Look, I want to. Okay, so you take this position, then I want to ask you some questions about it, right?" And typically, it's the same thing, right? Like you want to, we can get my view at some point, right? But right now, I'm asking questions of you, and so one of the issues I see with this view or this method is that you almost are like being a psychologist, or I mean, like a therapist for somebody, right? Where you're going like, well, look, I've figured out how to ask these right questions. And you don't even know if the person asking the questions can answer them, right? They're just saying, well, could you be wrong? Why is your confidence level at this point? Why, and you ask these type of questions. But I think the issue is that you're putting somebody in the seat of like the person that goes to a therapist, and like, it's like you're trying to show
I mean,
them.
they're very upfront about that from the very beginning. They tell them that they're going to ask them questions that are going to be difficult, and if they're uncomfortable at any time, they can leave. Like, this is they're not like pinned down to a chair and, peppered with
Yeah,
questions. This isn't how this works.
well, I'm not saying
And we need to
that's
we just need to draw one more distinction between because I think that Converse is right that that they sort of employ the Socratic method, that Presupps employs the Socratic method, but you gotta take a look at the context of that, because they're employing it after they've just made the the big claim that the God explains one very important thing about about reality, like intelligibility or morality or whatever, right? So that they're starting off with that claim, and then they're only using the Socratic method as a way to kind of like to poke holes in whatever view that you have in order to bolster their view. But I mean, it doesn't actually succeed in doing that, but that's their goal. In your street epistemologists, they're not offering that claim at the very beginning, but every Presupp is.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
if you know that, right? You know Darth Presupp, you've heard it all before. If you just like some rando wandering into a room, he doesn't start with a claim. He says, "What kind of atheist are you?" And then he says, "How do you know that? How do you know that?" And he asks questions about what your ultimate is.
He'll put the claim in there sometime. He'll put the claim in there eventually. He'll say that.
At the end, yeah.
Well, not necessarily at the end. Like if anybody has like for example, if you ask a question like, well, this could be this, but then sometimes he'll offer his own explanations. Like, well, from the Christian worldview, it's this and this and this and this and this. but you know, but you don't have that. So what do you have basically that takes up that position in your epistemology / ontology? Because
Can I
you know
ask
how he
Haiti a
likes to
question?
switch.
Yeah, Haiti. So is the main issue just like the we'll talk about my views at the end? So if they didn't do that,
No, I think it could just be me. I don't like the Socratic method either. I want someone to tell me why I'm wrong, and then
okay.
I'll listen and we'll talk about it. I don't want to be led down a garden path, and I always feel like it's a trap.
Yeah, I like a dialogue, but I mean, I'm fine with the Socratic method. I just think that we already have the Socratic method, right? What's different about street epistemology? And then I say, well, when you look where it originates, right, you can just see like it's from the book A Manual for Creating Atheists, and he tells you plainly in there what his intent is for this new thing, street epistemology he's coining, right?
But it's evolved. But that's evolved way
No, no,
beyond that book, right?
yeah, it's fine
Mm.
if it's involved, but you could say that, Presupp, a Presupp could just say, yeah, I don't start with, I believe in God. I just start with, how can you know anything, right? And then whenever they go through this whole dialogue tree to make them doubt their own existence or whatever, then at the end, they just go, yeah, well, I'm a Christian, man. Here's my card. Call me if you have any questions or something.
They don't start with how do I know anything. They start with God. That's the whole point of
No,
No,
Presupp.
no,
they
I'm,
don't. They
no,
start with, why are you an atheist? Why is it that God doesn't exist? Explain yourself. That's
right.
what they start with.
What I said is
Yeah,
that
what's your worldview?
I was saying that in the same way he said that street epistemology has evolved. I'm saying, yeah, well, presupps could just say we evolved, and from now on, like, we're not saying what we believe up front. We're just challenging what you believe until you doubt everything about, everything you can possibly know. And then at the end, I'll just give you my card that says, I'm a Christian, and give me a call if you got any questions or something.
But then you get argued back that, well, I can't give you my argument until I know your view. Until I know your worldview, I can't argue with you.
I mean,
My God, is that Xbox?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I've been trying to get a hold of you, man. Do you know how to back channel on here?
No, I don't. I'm very new to Clubhouse. I've only started on Clubhouse like a few weeks ago. Well, I was here a couple of months ago, but like for like one or two conversations, and then I was gone. But no,
You see the
what
thing that
do I
looks
do?
like a little leaf or like a little paper airplane?
Yeah.
Click on that. You'll see. Those are private messages.
Okay, I'm not
I
seeing any.
find
Sorry to interrupt y'all.
So it's okay. It's just an apologetic. I don't. The Muslims do it a lot, certainly on Clubhouse. They're just like, I just want to ask you a question, and then they're like, does your life have any meaning? Is what they're trying to say,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
It's
here's
just
my
offending. It just offends me.
here's my opinion on this. I think that like the street epistemology, the questions that like the constant questioning, I think that can only lead to more skepticism, right? I don't think that can lead you to a particular belief, certainly not in a God. Like I don't see like. So I could see how like the manual for making atheists was basically saying as you increase skepticism there will be more atheists. I think that makes complete sense because if you're skeptical of a belief and you no longer believe it, I think that's all you really need to do to kind of like go to begin that path. So like if a precept were doing that to me, now we're just left in this state of hyper skepticism. That doesn't leave like that doesn't help the God option, but it does help the the skeptic / atheist path.
Yeah, I don't think, but that's the thing is that's not what the manual for creating atheists says. Like that, residually it'll end up in. It actually says, "I'm going to give you these tools and teach you how to go out and find people of faith, no matter where they are in bars, schools, blah blah blah, and help them to lose this infectious faith they have or whatever." It's like a really
And that's true. It does say that, but again, the organization that Anthony Magnabosco has put together and the way that it is practiced today, it doesn't look anything like that. I mean,
No,
it's
I agree.
literally.
That's what I'm saying. Like the whole like thing, like, oh, I'm a street epistemologist or whatever, right? It's like why don't we just have like, I talk to people, I have dialogues about with critical thinking methods or it's the Socratic method or whatever. I'm just saying what distinguishes the Socratic method from from the
Nothing. It's just the Socratic method with a specific agenda. But I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, Christians are allowed to proselytize. Muslims are allowed to proselytize.
Oh, that's
Why
fine.
can't people who think that religion is a bad thing proselytize? And as long as they're not being dicks about it, I mean, when the Mormons
It looks
knock
like
on my door, I don't get offended.
No, I agree with that. I was just pointing out that the same things that people I hear all the time say about Presupp, I'm also thinking when I'm watching some of these videos of these people, like this seems like the same thing to me, just without, the God claim that some of them make.
Oh, yeah, I think it's very different there. So when the Mormons or the Jehovah's Witnesses knock on my door, when I bump into, someone on the street and they ask me, can I discuss something with you? And then, it's a pretext to, preach the gospel to me or something like that. I don't get offended. It doesn't, and I mean, unless I'm really, running late and got to be somewhere, I will usually entertain such conversations. In fact, if Mormons or JWs have the misfortune of knocking on my door, I invite them in, and and
They don't know what to them.
and I know they don't. I know they don't drink coffee, so I'll make some tea, But and I mean, I have a Jehovah's Witness upbringing myself, actually, so I'm kind of familiar, especially with how the J-Dubs go about it. But I don't take umbrage at it. I think it's fine, and I have these conversations with them, and they really are very open conversations. But I know the whole time they're trying to convert me. But I don't take umbrage at it, and I don't think anyone should. This is precisely how people of goodwill who want to change people's minds should go around changing people's minds. When the people from Greenpeace knock on my door, and they're canvassing and they want to get my vote for the Green Party and stuff like that, I don't get upset. It's okay. And it seems to me that if Anthony Magnabosco and his friends want to
Ah,
park themselves on a park corner and not even walk up to people, but just stand there with a sign saying, would you like to have an interview? Blah 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 blah. And people go, "What's this about?" And then he says, "This is what I'm doing." I really find that very
Yeah,
unobjectionable. Even if his express aim were to, turn people into atheists, as it used to be. It's not really that anymore. But even if it was still, overtly what he wanted to do, this is the way we ought to have these conversations. I think it's
right.
all to
Well,
the
I mean,
good.
I
it
don't
seems
agree
like it's turning
with
away
that, right?
dogmatism.
Right.
It's just not the fault of the questioner that most of the God views are dogmatic in nature. I mean, I think that's just a problem with the sort of view that it is, and that that the questions just aren't great for views that rely expressly on because the Bible told me so. I
Yeah,
mean
sure.
that's
But the thing is like I agree with all of that, right? Like if atheists want to proselytize, right, and say, look, I'm an atheist. Like, who is it, Shermer, that says this, right? I went back and knocked on all the same doors, like, Amway, but in the reverse after, I proselytized them for Christianity. That's fine, right? I don't have an issue with that at all, right? It's going to be that I think that this, student teacher dynamic. There's a audiobook I've been listening to a lot for the past year or so, and it's called The Philosopher's Toolkit, and in it has this thing about rhetoric and so forth, where it's really like going through some of the like heuristics that people use and like different rhetorical styles and stuff. And one thing they talk about is how the person who controls asking the questions usually wins the conversation, if you can say win in that way, right? And what they
Mhm.
mean by that is they give these examples of the like different presidential debates and so forth, where they're like, the questions for both of them, but then one of them says, "Let me ask you a question," right? And they pose a vague question to them that could go either way, right? And they're like, "Oh, how do I answer this?" Right? And so it ends up looking as if one person was correct, right? Even if they weren't. And so I'm just saying that in a conversation where two people are trying to be honest and come to a conclusion, I think it's fair that the conversation shouldn't be like student teacher. The dynamic shouldn't be, one person like, hey, I need to ask you some questions, kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe that's, and maybe that can just be, my personal view that like, hey, everybody else seems to like that dynamic. But I just think that like a dialogue or, it's better, I guess.
I do see it as a dialogue, though. But I mean, it's a dialogue that's forced. That it's I don't mean forced and coerced. I mean that it's an artificial dialogue, but it is a dialogue. They really are two people having a conversation. Whereas that's the problem with Presupp, is there's no sense in which it's a dialogue. I mean, I've had a couple of encounters just recently, and like 3 in the last couple of months. One with Garth Dawkins, one with Matt Yester, and then recently some guy named JJ. I hope I'm getting that right, JJ or JT or something. I can't remember.
It's
Anyway,
JT.
JT, thank you. And they're all shit shows, and the reason they're shit shows is because they're simply not listening to what I'm saying and responding to what I'm saying. They're reciting their lines. They hear me say something. They then go to their cheat sheet and say, okay, he used this word. Okay, so now this is the move that I pull. There's no sense in which they're actually responding to the content of what I've said. They just heard me use a word, and they go, oh, when someone uses that word, I ask this question, right? And if nothing else, if they're really stumped, they'll just say, how do you know that? Can you be certain about that? Could you be wrong about that? Right? I mean, the last conversation I had was really comical. I had just finished explaining or trying to explain why, well, according to my epistemological principles, certainty is not an ingredient in knowledge. It's not required. And why on earth would you require certainty? And he said, oh, certainty is, not important. Are you certain about that? I'm like,
That's
clearly
a
you haven't heard
Psi
what I've
10
said if you're
line.
asking me that, right? What's that?
It's a Psi 10 line. They get that from Psi 10. That's what he said.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's the one that sort of came up with the most lunkheaded version of presuppositionalism ever, and they found a way to export it to a lot of street preacher types. But that's the difference, is there's no sense in which this is a dialogue, not even a forced dialogue. It's really an interrogation that has the character of a kangaroo court, where it doesn't matter what you say, right? You're guilty, and we're just going to ignore, your testimony here. We're not going to take it into account. We're not going to weigh it. We're not going to evaluate it. We're just going to read the next line in the script, irrespective of what you say. And that's why these conversations are so maddening to be in and so frustrating to watch, right? Because you think, geez, this could have been a good conversation, right? There was a potential for a good conversation. It's not like they're not asking deep questions, right?
I actually was there, I think, when that conversation you were talking about, and when they left, or when you left, rather, Tonlock was like, yeah, I don't know why Ozzy was being like that. He was just being so difficult.
Hey, because he just wasn't playing, right?
Yeah,
not going to play the game. But that's just thuggery. I mean, that's just being dishonest, right?
Yeah,
presumably you could be a very honest and cordial and respectful Presupp, right? That's not
Oh, I have been.
impossible.
I've had really good conversations with
Yeah.
with presuppositionalists who weren't lunkheaded. They exist. There are people who are fairly sophisticated in their philosophy and are impressed with that apologetic. It comports with their Calvinist Reformed epistemological view in general. So they favor that apologetic over other forms of apologetics. Well, that's fine. I've had good conversations, productive, interesting conversations with such people. Those people are there to be had. They're there to be found, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not much of a blood sport to sort of attract an audience there.
What was the guy's name? His last name was Stevens.
Oh,
he was really good to
Jimmy
talk to
Stevens.
about it.
Jimmy Stevens.
Yeah, he's a great one to
Yeah, and
talk
he
to
was
like
great.
that.
He was great. That was a perfect example of a guy who was a presuppositionalist, but he was very thoughtful. And if you came up with a good rejoinder to something that he thought was like a stumper of a question for you, he'd think about it, and he'd reformulate. And if you challenged him on something and he didn't have a good answer, he'd try to come up with the best answer he could on the spot, as any good interlocutor would, who's arguing strenuously for their position. But then, like, sometimes he'd come back and say, yeah, I've changed my mind about this, right? Or I've updated, or I've thought of a new argument, or I've looked into this and there's this and stuff like that. Like, it felt productive. Like, I could have a conversation with him, and then like a month later I'd see him having a conversation with somebody else, and I could tell that something I or some other person I'd seen him conversing with had an influence on his mind. And we hadn't talked him out of his Calvinism, right? But the point is, his conversation was constantly evolving, just the way our conversations are evolving, hopefully. when we're being open this way, right? So such people are there to be had. It's not intrinsic to presuppositionalism that you've got to be a dogmatist, right? It's just characteristic that it appeals to people who are dogmatic because it encourages you, it invites you to ask really difficult questions and um, and engage in what's called epistemic dumbfounding. So dumbfounding is a sort of psychological effect where you're struck dumb. You don't know what to say. So people get morally dumbfounded all the time. People, like, I used to teach ethics, and when I taught ethics this was a baby ethics course in university, nothing advanced. But one of the things you would do is you'd present, you know, I don't know, a deontological theory like Kant's theory or something like that, and then you'd turn to utilitarianism, and then you'd turn to virtue ethics, and you'd build the best possible case for these various views over the many weeks and months. And the students would just have a tendency to just sort of be massively impressed with whatever theory you were selling that week, and they'd go for it, and then you'd switch to another theory, and then you'd present them with all the objections that new theory presented to the last theory, and they'd be stumped, right? Or you would hit them with trolley problems, right? You'd introduce them to trolley problems, and the nice thing about the trolley problem thought experiments is you get a person to say, what would you do? Would you flip the switch and derail the train, or what would you do? And people, will fall out one way or the other. And then you can tweak the example slightly, and next thing you know, they are changing their mind. Suddenly, what was before an obvious answer, yes, I would flip the switch, or no, I would never flip the switch, suddenly they're changing their mind, right? And so what you're trying to create there is moral dumbfounding. You're trying to confound them. You're trying to leave them so they don't know what to say. They're just paralyzed. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to answer this because they haven't thought it through. And presuppositionalism tends to work on that same idea of dumbfounding, but not with a view to just getting the person to think, but with a view to shaming and humiliating. So usually in a classroom, you in philosophy, you do a lot of dumbfounding of your students. You do it quite deliberately, but you're not trying to advance an agenda. You're just trying to get them to see that these questions are thorny and difficult, and sort of shake them out of their naive convictions that the answers are obvious, because everyone brings intuitions to all of these questions, and usually have fairly firm but unexamined opinions about these things. And so you try to dumbfound them. I think most philosophy professors at some point engage in deliberate dumbfounding of their students, and it's understood to be a good technique. That's what Socrates did, with his Socratic irony, right? Pretending to be an idiot and asking people and engaging in this Socratic dialogue. And what he was doing was he was trying to dumbfound his interlocutors, right? And it works. It exposes that a person isn't warranted in being as confident as they are. It's a great technique to make a person think and rethink their positions, but it should never be done for the purposes of humiliating and embarrassing a person and then crowing about how great your own position is by contrast, when you haven't done anything to show that your position is correct. And that's what I find is so objectionable about the lunk-headed version of presuppositionalism, is that it's not didactic, right? It's really about humiliating. It's about ponage. That's what I find so ugly about it. And that's why I get my back up when people try to do it to me. I don't pretend that this is in fact an inquiry. I realize this is an inquiry, an interrogation rather, with a view to trying to pwn me, usually from people who know a fraction of the philosophy that I do, and I don't even know that much philosophy.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, Ozzy, and you're probably one of the most, like, every time I talk to you, you've been very intellectually honest. As far as I can tell, right? The only issue I have is, like, if the sample size of street epistemology is Anthony Magnabosco, right, and because he's changed his approach since he started, that's not going to be indicative of street epistemology in general, right? And so I know you agree with that, but the point is that the exact, like, ponage attitude that you were speaking of, well, I just see that a lot of the people I follow that employ these methods, right? Their videos and comment sections are both just full of nothing but, oh, person destroyed, couldn't answer, don't even know
Yes.
why he believes
Yeah.
this, that. And then you find a lot of genuine Christians, right, that they don't think it's, you know, like a good thing to try and make people look bad, right? That they just want to show them that, like, look, we do have answers, and we don't think your answers work, and things like this, right? And just to be clear, I'm not a presuppositionalist, but I'm just saying, I think Anthony is probably one of the best as far as communicating clearly and being fairly genuine. But I just, I'm friends with so many people, and I know a lot of people who do this on the unbelieving side that, I mean, it's just like their goal to make the theists look bad, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. So let's be clear. Anthony is the high watermark of this method, and I mean he is really gentle and is very careful never to humiliate and pwn people. But if you read the comment section under his videos, you're absolutely right. A lot of people that watch his stuff are watching it so they can see someone in the throes of confusion and doubt for the first time, and watching them struggle, and they're getting off on that, right? That's what I actually find hard about watching those videos. I find it painful to watch some of those videos. Some of them are great, but I mean, some of them are like, oh my God, this person is really, really clinging, and it's not good. And and Anthony won't post something without the person's consent. And he didn't tell me this, but someone told me that he often doesn't upload things when he feels the person is really embarrassed themselves and will be embarrassed to have it uploaded, even if they consented. Like they literally sign a piece of paper, because they, well, they don't sign a piece of paper, but he used to have them sign a piece of paper. Now he just gets them on video saying it's okay if he uploads it. But and then he usually asks it again. But so he's definitely the high watermark because he's not interested in pwning people. But if you're right, if you read the comments, right, there's a big fan base of people who do like to see this. I mean, people who watch the Atheist Experience love to see Matt Dillahunty hanging up on people. Like that's a good thing. So
Well,
I agree. You're absolutely right about that.
it's almost like he has a show now called the Hang Up Show.
Yeah, no, he really does. Yeah, yeah. He has a show called The Hang Up. It's all about all of his hang ups, and then he hangs up on people.
Ozzy, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, if I'm if I'm totally off here, just tell me that I'm off. But if I were an atheist, to me, honestly, it would feel patronizing. Like, do you agree with that, or like having
What would
up,
feel patronizing?
like one of the intellectual leaders, let's say, of our community having a show called The Hang Up, where the like the goal is kind of how quickly can I disagree with this person and hang up on them or something, right?
Have you
Yeah, I
ever
would agree
watched
with
an
that.
episode of that? I don't think that that's the goal. I think it's kind of done tongue in cheek. I mean, I don't think that's the actual goal. I think that's just kind of like everybody criticizes Matt Dillahunty for hanging up on people and not really giving him a chance, and that's fine. He does that. He does that to an extent. But yeah, when he was coming up with the name of that show, he was kind of like, he was kind of laughing at it because of that. But the few times that I've watched it, it hasn't been all that douchey.
Where did Ozzy go?
I
He
don't
went
know,
into the audience.
but the room IQ went down some.
I'd like to suggest that there might be times when it's appropriate to embarrass or humiliate somebody. Somebody, for instance, who is an anti-vaxxer and who is a leader of that community. If you can, embarrass that person or make them appear to be, or to make it obvious that that person does not know what they're talking about, it could have the beneficial effect of devaluing them in their followers' eyes, and that could actually save lives, because anti-vaxxers, as opposed to abstract philosophical debates, but anti-vaxxers result in the deaths of people. So could I build? I think I could build a moral case for embarrassing or humiliating somebody who is disseminating conspiracy theories that have that result in human suffering or even death.
Yeah, I would not endorse that view myself. People, you can, in the course of a discussion, embarrass a person, And I think it's okay to embarrass a person in a discussion, provided you're not setting out to embarrass them. So, for instance, if you're having a discussion with someone and you're not trying to humiliate them, but they keep sticking to their guns on something stupid, and they end up having enough rope that they hang themselves, right? And you might even try to be charitable and say, well, hang on here, like let me help, and you try to steel man their argument for them. You don't even have to be so condescending as to say that you're doing it, but you can in fact shore up their argument and build the best case for them and stuff like that. I mean, that's obviously the most intellectually charitable thing to do. It's difficult to do, and when the subject is consequential, the way something like vaccinations are. It might be harder to motivate yourself to be so fair-minded, but I would make a distinction between humiliating a person and doing something for the purposes of humiliating them, right? I would not want to humiliate a person just because I want to win the argument, right? You should never humiliate a person solely to humiliate them, but I think you shouldn't even humiliate a person, for the larger good of disabusing people of the view that this anti-vax perspective is legitimate and stuff like that, right? So
Well, the leader
that,
might be fair game because they've already stepped into the arena to a certain extent. But just like normal people on the street, completely agree.
yeah, I mean, even I don't know.
Well,
Maybe I'm just
understand that I'm doing this as simply as an exercise, right? This is not my beliefs.
yeah. Well, even if it was, it would be okay to advance it, even if it's your belief, right? Like,
well, I think that probably it would be ineffective to be extremely aggressive. What's probably more effective is simply a clarity and making it clear that this X person doesn't know what they're talking about. You can do that in such a way that it is not perceived as mean-spirited. I think that maybe that might be the difference would be the intention behind your actions. So if your intention is, and you show somebody that no, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, and you make it absolutely clear, that would probably be more effective than being highly aggressive and maybe perhaps even abusive. That would be my supposition. That would be my position, right? But I was just proposing that because I wanted to push back and find out what some people thought, if there was a case for being highly aggressive and towards somebody or not.
well, I'm curious what other people think. Actually, that's a good question.
I think that being highly aggressive against Darth Dawkins is warranted. I don't think it's helpful because I think that whatever coin you turn up, he's going to turn up the opposite side. And there's lots of Tom Rabbit videos showing this. But like if you come in aggressive, he'll act all meek and mild and kind of that, oh, why is this person being so mean to me? And then if you're coming in meek and mild, then he'll be overly aggressive in order to try to gaslight you into either becoming aggressive yourself or just kind of not wanting to take part in the conversation anymore.
I understand that, but there's sort of a dilemma. There is a dilemma here between giving somebody oxygen, by which I mean publicity and attention and directing eyeballs towards somebody, and the difference between simply ignoring them and denying them any kind of presence or platform on which to spread. Because quite often they don't care whether or not they look bad or not. They simply want to get their propaganda out there, and then once the propaganda is out there, the people for whom it is crafted will recognize it and adopt it. I mean, that's how, for instance, people like white supremacists and overt racists take it as any kind of publicity is good publicity for them, because their propaganda is designed to appeal to a certain people, and simply getting the message out there is a plus for them. And so there's good reason to deny those people any kind of attention that gives them, quote unquote, media oxygen or something. But then there's the question of whether or not in doing so you allow such ideas to fester and to spread under the radar. And I think that that's a real problem where it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. It can be really hard to decide which tactic or approach is the best one to take. And I don't think I have an answer for that.
What do you do do you think there's a danger in being too charitable to an uncharitable interlocutor? Because I've seen this happen here, where in an effort to be charitable, there's a lot of sort of steel manning and helping with their argument. And then the other person kind of claims a W and says, see, they agreed with me. Or you might say something and then they like glom onto it and declare that you said something dumb, So you're being very charitable and you're being sort of vulnerable, but they are just looking to catch you out. Like, how do you handle that kind of thing? Do you sort of turn off your charitableness, or do you just kind of, end the conversation when you realize what's going on? And that's for Ozzy, but anyone else?
Oh, for me. Well, I'm not nice in conversations, right? I try to be polite. I try to be civil. I believe that even if you dislike someone, you should be civil, because I just believe in the norms of rational discourse, right? I just don't think there's a really good reason to be a dick, right? But if someone's just being rude to you, I don't think there's any reason to pretend that they're not being rude, right? Now, a slight amount of condescension I think we can take, because we all feel condescending towards people sometimes. I know it happens to me. I do it, and I hope that people will forgive it in me, and so I try to forgive it in other people as well. But it has happened to me where I was being as intellectually charitable as I thought I could muster at the moment, and then the person has sort of tries to count that as a win because I agreed with something, even if I in fact formulated an argument for their case better than they did, or I clarified some confusion or something like that, right? That's happened to me, but I mean, I don't think that's a terrible thing, right? I really don't care if people think I'm a dumbass, right? Lots of people think I'm a dumbass. There are people in this room who think I'm a dumbass, right? So, like, it doesn't matter. Like, nothing, like, reputationally, nothing hinges on this, right? Like, I don't care what my reputation is here, right? Not because I don't care about having a reputation. I mean, in real life, my reputation matters to me, right? But like on Discord and on YouTube and stuff like that, it's inconsequential. I don't earn a living. I've never monetized my channel or anything like that. So, like, nothing is at stake, right? So I think if you don't really have anything materially at stake, you really shouldn't get too invested, and you should just let people crow. Like, who cares? So they crow. I mean, there's videos by presuppositionalists literally mocking me, laughing at me, literally, picking apart a video that I've made and going through it, word by word, and having a big old laugh at me, right? And in some of those places, I was, specifically saying, yeah, this is true. I agree with this. And, like, I have this view about faith commitments. I believe that at the bottom right now, rest a whole pile of faith commitments, literally blind faith commitments. Now, I don't get a lot of love within the atheist community online for saying that, yeah, all of us, all of us atheists out there have blind faith commitments, right? I get some heat for that, right? And believe me, on the other side, the religious side, they count that as a win, right? And they think that like I have defeated, I've dealt a blow to everyone on my side of the theist atheist divide, right? But I don't care. Like, you just have to try to be honest. If you want to be, I don't know, like, this is weird because this has nothing to do with my own sort of moral outlook here. This is just, my background is in philosophy, and when you're in philosophy and you're pursuing it as an academic profession, as I was an aspiring academic, you sort of drink in this value and you take it seriously. Like, look at like someone like Alex Malpass, right? I mean, that guy is just unfailingly polite and civil. I mean, he never gets his dander up, and I do, but he never does. Like, he's really quite unflappable. He's really impressive.
I've heard him get angry. I've
Yeah,
heard
I
him
haven't.
actually raise his voice one notch above his normal demeanor.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I have yet to see
One
it.
notch.
When
Okay, well, good.
knowledge.
It's nice to know that he has. So I think you just have to sort of, suck it up when that happens. Yes, it's going to happen. You're going to be charitable. You're going to be nice. You're going to try to do what is the intellectually charitable thing, the intellectually honest thing. And somebody's going to sort of, walk away thinking that they knock you down and picked up your flag and are waving it around like it's your dead body, like that's just
Could
going to
I
happen.
Well, I
could I
think you
relate
get
some of
to the point of a discussion or an argument if you're the more charitable you are when you steel man and do things like that. You get to the point of whatever the discussion's about. You filter it down to what the basics of what you're talking about a lot quicker.
could I relate some of my experiences? So what happens to me is when I debate people that are very ignorant about some things, they almost invariably, and I mean like 2 or 3 times a week, every week, all the time, they will sexualize. They'll make sexual comments. They'll make ridiculous comments. They'll and all. What I do is I simply point it out. I simply point to it and I say I prefer that you not talk about my sexuality or my gender identity. I prefer that you not do that, and that upsets them, right? And then they'll get into mocking and ridicule.
I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt, but I don't know who's speaking. Is it Brandon or?
It's Brenda. My name is Brenda.
Okay,
Right.
because somebody else is also out of the mute, so I didn't know. Okay, thank you. Now I know. I just wanted to know who's
Okay.
speaking. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then they'll also tell me that these are people who deny gravity, deny basic geometric facts, assert that the Earth is flat, and I will be met with peals of laughter about my claims about simple high school physics, high school mathematics, and geometry, and you just take that in stride and you say, yeah, that's right. I am an idiot. Absolutely, you can call me that because I think that the Earth is a globe, and those people exist, and I debate them, and this is all they do, and so I just point to it. I say, yes, you're just making these comments because you're losing the debate, and I try to redirect it back to the topic, which is whatever it is, the reality of gravity or something like that. And I said, please answer the question, because what people invariably do is get into personal insults, sexualizing people, demonizing people, belittling and mocking them. It's just a sure sign that they're losing the argument. And then you can just point to that, and you can say, without getting angry, you can just say, well, it seems to me that you're not able to answer the question. You're not able to address my criticisms. You're not able to respond to this critique of your position, and that has helped me a good deal. Also, I also try to take Doug of Pine Creek's advice, which is to simply be dead inside. Oh, that was a little joke.
Thank you, Brenda.
That's a good strategy, though. Rhetorically, that's really good when someone resorts to insults. Not even an ad hominem, but just a flat out insult and stuff like that. You could say, okay, well, I'm just going to ignore that because that's just an insult. It's completely irrelevant to my point. So, but what would you say to this, right? And then they'll insult you again, and he's like, okay, but again, that's irrelevant. So, I mean, let's say for the sake of argument, I am a troll or I'm an imbecile or something. What would you say to someone who was serious and intelligent who said this? And if they say, oh, well, an intelligent person wouldn't say that, or a troll wouldn't ask that, it's like, okay, well, you're confronted with a person who is asking you that. Why can't you answer it? If you had an answer, you would just answer it, would you not? You could have already answered it by now, right? And that really works. That's a very effective method. The thing that gets me the most is when people pretend to be polite, when they're like dripping with condescension, when they are insulting you, when they're bullying you, they're shouting you down and stuff like that, or they're muting you all over the place, and lecturing at you and stuff like that. This is the kind of thing that goes on in Dawkins's.
It's very
room.
hard. It's very hard.
I have no
been
patience
through
for it.
quite a lot. I've been through quite a lot, and it's been very difficult. But I think, well, no, I should probably not say that. But many times I'm able to overcome that and take my satisfaction in the fact that I have been reasonable and I've given the best possible argument. Um, but it is really hard. It is not easy to let that stuff slide off your back. It's very hard.
Yeah, I don't do so well with it, and I've sort of I feel like it's maybe it's old age, but I've just gotten to a point where when people are feigning civility, that's much worse to me than someone who's just out and out insulting me. When someone is pretending, hypocritically pretending, oh, but listen, I'm talking softly, and you're getting irritated, and you're raising your voice. What's wrong? Like, piss off. Like, stop with the pretense. That really irritates me, and I no longer participate in discussions. I used to sort of weather through that pretty well, but I don't know. I
You
don't
did.
seem to have I don't have the stomach for it any longer. And yeah, sorry, what was that?
You did. I saw you with Dawkins a couple times, and it's a side of you I had never seen before.
Yeah, no, it's definitely different. I feel like I've run out of patience for it. I think it's because I've been out of the great debate for a long time. And when I've been having conversations of this sort with people, it's been sort of people in the world, right? People that, I rub shoulders with, neighbors and friends of friends, and people that you meet, sitting at a coffee shop, and your conversation starts up about politics. And, these have been, strained political times. And so I've had some, awkward conversations with people about all kinds of things, especially about politics. And people are just invariably way more civil in person than they are online. And I guess, it's been years since I've had these conversations online because I've been away for so long. It's literally been years. And now coming back into it, I just I don't have the same fortitude and patience that I had built up. I'm not as practiced at ignoring that people are actually being slyly rude and feigning civility, right? Pretending to be abiding by norms of rational discourse while, deliberately obstructing a conversation, deliberately ignoring what you're saying, deliberately, um, uh, you know, asking an irrelevant question or obfuscating in some way or something like that. Um, I don't know. I just out of patience with it. So anyway, maybe I need to work on that. Maybe it's probably not a good thing.
You
We're
need to have
talking
a
about the efficacy of these things. I don't think it's a good thing rhetorically.
You need to have a conversation with John Lee.
With John who?
John Lee.
Oh yeah. We've talked a little bit, but no, we haven't had like a disagreement about anything yet. But why is he difficult that way?
Yeah. He
Yeah.
he ignores pretty much what you're saying and just keeps going and goes off on tangents and.
Right. Xbox, I got a quick question for you. You told me about the back chat thing, how to find it. So I
Yeah.
went back there and I looked, and I've got a whole bunch of people who've like sent me back chat requests. I didn't know were there. So thank you for that. But yours is not among them. So if you tried to reach out to me that way, go ahead now and I can reply because I didn't know that was there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I'm a fan of like partial mirroring, right? Like you kind of mirror the person you're speaking with. So if they're like a very calm demeanor, typically keeping your calm demeanor, but when they like get really irate, I don't obviously suggest that you get really irate. Although uh, I think that there's just a scale of people who are here for intellectual reasons and here for entertainment reasons, right? And I think those are probably the two opposite ends. And then there's some people that are just, people fall on the spectrum between entertainment and intellectual stimulation. And so I see, like, I'm not even above using some rhetorical tactics, let's say, to disarm people if I know something's going to happen. Like I typically think just start off with a genuine conversation back and forth, right? But if you need to, like, I think that it's not, I mean, you guys can tell me if you disagree with this, but I think that it's actually not that bad to sometimes poison the well up front by saying, to, like, let's say for you guys on the atheist side, it might be Darth, or, it might be Arn Ra on the theist side or something, by saying, look, people keep telling me how, like, how emotional and uncharitable you're going to be, or that you are. And it just can't be true that that's how you are because you seem rational, right? And then the conversation from then on seems like if they are to fly off the handle emotionally, right, and not keep it strictly intellectually, then they're going to kind of be conceding what you said up front, that that was the impression a lot of people had given them about you, right? And so even something like that, I mean, I don't see it as being, completely like straightforward, but I'm not even like above that if I think that that will help keep the conversation to, you know, less personal and more intellectual. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you about keeping it more intellectual and like I said, I usually get into discussions and grant the other person just about everything they want because I want to get to the point that they're trying to make. And arguing about little bitty nitpicking about little things gets in the way of all that, whether it's personal nitpicking or even sometimes intellectual nitpicking. But I think keeping it more on the intellectual side
Yeah, like I'm
is a
not
lot
above.
better. So I think there's room for a little bit of personal.
Yeah, I'm saying like I'm not even above like rudeness. Like I agree with Ozzy. Like niceness isn't something that I would aim for, right? I wouldn't mind using like a rhetorical strategy, like to you know make an intellectual point or something, right? I think the issue is the intellectual honesty, right? What am I using this for? And I think that's why people like Ozzy and Malpass and other people like that is because they don't seem to have a chip on their shoulder due to religion. Danny's the same way. If you guys know Danny, um, he's the same way. A ton of theists just really like him. And I think the reason why is because he doesn't come off as somebody who has a chip on his shoulder about religion. He comes off as somebody that's like, yeah, I seen holes in the arguments that theists used, and so I didn't think they were, intellectually rigorous, and so I changed my view. That's how I see some of these people. So when people say Ozzy's nice, I see what he was saying yesterday about it's not niceness, right? I think it's just kind of refreshing sometimes to see um, somebody sticking to the intellectual side. But I don't mind rudeness actually. If somebody's a little rude, but they're still keeping it to the issues, that's it's not really a problem to me.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's the pretense for me. It's the pretense of abiding by the norms of rational discourse while actually subverting them, while keeping a veneer of courtesy. That really ticks me off. And but with respect to what you were saying or asking earlier, Connors, um, I guess I need to think about this a little more. Oh, but thanks for the compliment, by the way. That was nice of you to say. Um, oh, maybe I need
The
to think
thing
about this
about
more.
poisoning the well to disarm the person up
Yeah,
front.
well, I wouldn't. Yeah, so like I won't stoop to that. Like, um, now maybe if I knew how to do it artfully, right? Because it's really going to come down to the execution, right? You can do that so clumsily that that it backfires and it doesn't advance the point. It doesn't advance the conversation and stuff like that. So I'm not usually going to do it that way. Um, and if I do it that way, it's probably more less by design and more like I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't have a lot of views on rhetorical strategies. Not that I don't employ any, but I just don't have a lot of opinions about them. Right. One opinion I disagree with, though, this is what you said at the very, very outset, actually, when you started that last thing that you were talking about. This idea of sort of calibrating how civil you are or how polite or how nice you are in a conversation is based on the other person. That I don't do. Like if someone comes at me, rude, loud, and obnoxious, well, I might reply in kind, right? Someone just starts off with insults, I might just, hit them with insults in return, because I don't think it's important to be nice. Um, uh, but I mean, if someone slips in some insults and stuff like that in the course of an argument, it's actually been kind of fruitful, and we're going back and forth, no matter how much we dislike each other. I'm probably just going to, point out, as Brenda suggested, that you're doing nothing but insulting me here. This is nothing to your point. Let's get back on track. I'll do that, but I don't believe in the idea that I'm going to mirror, as you put it. This is an opinion I hear expressed a lot, actually, and I see it a lot in among my own friends in Facebook discussions and stuff like that. People will say, you know, whatever degree of civility and courtesy and stuff like that a person shows me, or incivility or discourtesy or something like that a person shows me, that's how I'm going to respond. And I've always thought, that's a mistake, because there you are literally letting your own standards of conduct be dictated by what the other person's are. Whatever they do, I'm going to mirror it, right? And I know you're not, Converse, you weren't saying, blank check, whatever they do, I'll do, right? But I mean, even a little bit of mirroring, I think, is probably not a great thing. I'd rather be in control of how I want the discussion to go from my end, and not use their misbehavior as a license for me to misbehave, as I see it, right? So that's sort of my view. I think a lot of people rationalize their own shitty behavior in discussions by saying, well, all I do is mirror with them. And so, see, they provoked me, or I deliberately adopt the strategy of mirroring their bad behavior. You really are, I think, surrendering your own standard of conduct to another person's worst standard of conduct.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you were to go back and listen, and just you might, I'm not sure if you missed it, or maybe you heard it and you were just saying that in general. But I think I did say that I think that mirroring in general tends to make for a better conversation. But I don't suggest somebody getting irate and then you getting irate as well.
Right. You said a little mirroring. You
Yeah.
qualified it. I think you said
Well,
a little mirroring, to be
well,
exact.
I think the principle that I'm using here is a principle that you use in like in the business workplace environment, right? Is it's this whole thing about the customer's always right. Well, the customer is obviously not always right. We know that, but the principle there is always be agreeable, right? And it's just to simply facilitate this interaction in the, I guess, swiftest or most efficient way possible. And so I agree with you. Like somebody getting irate and then you getting irate, that just goes nowhere. But in general, we do this without even thinking. Sometimes, like if I'm talking to somebody in the workplace environment, they're like, hey, did you get those papers, blah blah blah, then I might just be like, yeah, I got them, blah blah blah. But if I run into like my friend's mom from 15 years ago and she's like, hey, I'm like, hey, like I changed my voice to like almost match her, like
Right,
Right.
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 it's like, yes. Yeah, so
Sure.
anyway, I guess the principle here is just be agreeable when possible, or like just to try and facilitate efficiency almost. Because just, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like you almost have to either spend time with somebody over conversation a certain amount of time, or watch all their content up front to even get to what you guys agree and disagree about in the actual intellectual side of it. Do you get what I mean by that?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like the people that I see doing, like having the best conversations are typically, like university people that are more on a collegiate level, right? And so it's typically people who they're not they've ran into all the other people's issues, right? They've read all the articles from Evan Fales and these other people on their positions, so they don't run into somebody and go, oh dang, I've never heard of this, or why is he making up this dumb argument. They're pretty upfront, like they're pretty familiar with both sides, so they're not like you don't have to get over their like personal incredulity almost. And so I don't know, that's just the way I look at it. But it can just waste so much time. I feel like you have to get to know somebody in these type of conversations before you can actually get to the meat of it.
Now, if you go back to my channel on YouTube, all my videos are privated now, but they were all 8-hour hangouts or longer. It's just Google would cut it off after 8 hours, and we might talk for another few hours, and those were good conversations for the most part, because you would get to know someone, and you would get to know how they thought, how they worked, how they, how they played the game, kind of deal. And then you knew how to respond to them and actually have a good conversation with them. But